Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening.
The spaceport was bustling with activity, as species from across the galaxies intermingled. Neon lights flickered above, casting colorful reflections on the metallic surfaces. Merchants shouted over one another, trying to attract the attention of potential buyers, while ships of various shapes and sizes docked and undocked in the background. Jack maneuvered through the crowd with practiced ease. As a human merchant who specialized in rare mechanical parts, he was used to the chaos of the spaceport. However, today his attention was drawn away from potential deals by a commotion near one of the newer docking bays. A crowd had gathered around someone, their voices a mix of curiosity and concern. Jack moved closer, his interest piqued. Pushing through, he found at the center of the crowd an alien, her skin shimmering like the surface of a tranquil ocean under a full moon. She looked lost and visibly upset. "Hey, everyone, give her some space, will you?" Jack called out as he stepped forward. The crowd, recognizing Jack as a regular, gradually dispersed. "I'm Jack," he said gently, offering a hand but then quickly retracting it, remembering not all species appreciated human gestures. "You seem a bit lost. Can I help?" The alien woman looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and confusion. "I am Ayra," she responded, her voice melodic but laced with anxiety. "I am indeed lost. I was supposed to meet a contact here for an exchange, but everything is so different from what I was briefed." Jack smiled. "Well, you're in luck. I know this place like the back of my hand. What are you looking for?" Ayra pulled out a small, holographic device, flicking through images until she showed him a picture of a quaint, little shop. "I need to find this place. It is important for my mission." "Ah, that's over in the eastern wing. Not too far. I'll take you there," Jack said, motioning for her to follow him. They navigated through the diverse crowd, tall, feathered creatures mingling with robotic entities and beings made entirely of light. As they walked, Jack pointed out some of the spaceport's attractions. "That's the best place to get glimmerfish stew in this quadrant. And over there, they sell spare parts for almost any ship. You never know what you'll find." Ayra listened intently, her device forgotten for the moment. "Your species seems so adaptive, mingling with so many others." "It is refreshing," Jack laughed. "Humans have to be adaptable. We're pretty much everywhere, which means we get into everything. But enough about us. Tell me about where you're from." "I am from Selim, a water planet. It's all very blue and vast. Not many of us travel off-planet. I am here to gather resources that are scarce for us," she explained, her tone warming a bit as she spoke of her home. "That sounds beautiful," Jack replied, genuinely intrigued. "And kind of peaceful compared to this place." They continued talking, Jack sharing stories of human colonies and Ayra describing the underwater cities of Selim. By the time they reached the shop Ayra was looking for, they had broken through the initial barriers of their meeting. "Thank you, Jack," Ayra said as they stopped in front of the shop. "I was not hopeful when I arrived, but you have made this much easier." Jack grinned. "No problem at all. If you need anything else while you're here, just let me know. I'm around." Ayra nodded, her earlier anxiety replaced with a confident smile. "I just might take you up on that offer." As Jack walked away, he glanced back, seeing Ayra enter the shop with a new steadiness in her step. He couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of an interesting friendship. In the local eatery specializing in intergalactic cuisine, Jack and Ayra found themselves at a small, secluded table surrounded by the hum of alien dialects and the rich aromas of unfamiliar spices. The menu was a colorful array of dishes from across the known galaxies, depicted in images that occasionally rotated to show different angles of the food. "So, what looks good to you?" Jack asked, scanning the menu. Ayra peered at the holographic displays, her brow furrowed. "I do not recognize any of these dishes. What would you recommend for someone who primarily consumes aquatic plants and protein?" Jack chuckled. "Well, you're in luck. They do a mean spiral gill wrap here. It's like seaweed, but with a kick. And for protein, you might like the Krystack skewers. They're a bit like your planet's glimmerfish, or so I've heard." "Spiral gill wrap and Krystack skewers," Ayra repeated, practicing the sounds. I will trust your judgment. Jack waved over a server, a nimble, four-armed Grecian, and placed their order. As they waited, he took out a small, electronic device from his pocket. This is a translator, he said, handing it to Ayra. It might help until you get the hang of our languages. Ayra accepted it with a nod of thanks. Your technology fascinates me. It's so integrated. We use technology, but not to this extent. It's a necessity for us. Helps bridge the gap between species and cultures, Jack explained. He leaned back, observing the various patrons engaging in their meals. So, tell me about Selim. What's it like living underwater? It's peaceful, mostly. The cities are built within and around coral reefs, protected from predators by bioluminescent barriers. Our days are measured by the currents and the light from the surface, Ayra described, her eyes lighting up with the memory. That sounds amazing. Do you miss it? Jack asked, his tone gentle. Yes, but exploring is in my blood. My father was a scout before me, she shared, a hint of pride in her voice. Their food arrived then, carried by the Grecian server, who deftly placed the plates on their table with his multiple arms. Jack showed Ayra how to use the utensils provided, a challenge due to her webbed fingers, but she managed with some dexterity. As they ate, Jack was curious about how Ayra found the food. She chewed thoughtfully, then smiled. It's delicious. The spiral gill is much like our seaweed, but with more flavor. And the skewers are tender. It's very different from what I'm used to. Glad you like it, Jack grinned. Food is a big part of how we connect with each other here. Sharing a meal, sharing stories. It's universal, I think. Ayra nodded in agreement. Yes, sharing meals is important on Selim too. It's a time for families to bond and for old stories to be told. The conversation drifted to other topics. Jack's travels to other planets, Ayra's studies of her own world's oceanography, and their thoughts on the stars and what mysteries lay beyond. As the meal ended, Jack taught Ayra how to ask for the bill in the local dialect. She practiced a few times before calling over the server, who responded with an appreciative nod at her effort. Thank you, Jack, for this experience, Ayra said as they left the eatery. I feel I am learning more than I expected about your culture and your people. Jack smiled. And I'm learning a lot from you too. It's all about the exchange, right? Maybe next time. You can teach me something about Selim. I would like that, Ayra agreed, her eyes reflecting the neon lights as they walked back into the bustling streets of the spaceport, ready for their next adventure. The following day, Jack decided to take Ayra to the city's Cultural Exchange Center, a sprawling complex dedicated to the education and integration of various species through shared knowledge and interactive experiences. This place is a hub for those looking to understand other cultures better. You'll find exhibits on just about every major species that frequents the spaceport, Jack explained as they approached the grand entrance, marked by a towering sculpture that morphed shape to represent different cultural symbols from around the galaxy. Ayra looked around in awe. It's incredible. We have nothing like this on Selim. Our learning is more traditional. Well, then let's dive in. There's a lot to see, and I think you'll find some of this really interesting, Jack said with an enthusiastic grin. Their first stop was an exhibit about human culture, featuring elements from Earth's varied traditions. Displays ranged from music and dance to fashion and technology. Humans are incredibly diverse, Ayra observed, examining a traditional Japanese kimono next to a high-tech wearable gadget. How do you manage to keep such distinct traditions alive? Jack shrugged. It's not always easy, especially with how spread out we are across the colonies. But there's a strong drive to remember where we came from. Helps keep us grounded, I guess. They moved on to interactive stations where visitors could learn languages. Ayra eagerly tried out a module designed to teach basic human languages. She repeated phrases in Spanish and Mandarin, delighting in the nuances of each. Jack watched, impressed. You're picking this up fast. I think you have a knack for languages. It's necessary for my role as a scout. I need to be able to communicate, or at least understand the basics, Ayra replied, focusing intently on the screen. Next, they explored an exhibit dedicated to interspecies communication, highlighting nonverbal cues and gestures common to various alien races. Jack demonstrated a few human gestures, like a handshake and a nod, explaining their meanings. Ayra laughed as she mimicked a nod. In Selim, a nod actually means confusion, not agreement. It could lead to some awkward situations. That's exactly why places like this are important, Jack said. Imagine negotiating a trade and accidentally agreeing to something because you misunderstood a gesture. Their exploration continued with a visit to a virtual reality section where visitors could experience environments from different worlds. Jack chose a simulation of Selim, curious about Ayra's home. They donned VR headsets and were immediately transported underwater, surrounded by vivid coral reefs and schools of shimmering fish. "It's beautiful," Jack murmured, his voice filled with wonder as he looked around the simulated ocean. "Yes, it's very accurate. This is much like the view from my home," Ayra explained, guiding him through the virtual waters, pointing out creatures and plants native to her world. After the VR experience, they sat in the center's cafe, sipping on drinks from a menu as diverse as the galaxy itself. "This was enlightening," Ayra said, her eyes reflecting a mix of joy and contemplation. "Your species has such a rich tapestry of cultures. It's much more complex than I anticipated, and I got a glimpse of Selim without having to leave dry land," Jack added with a chuckle. "But seriously, this has been great. Learning about where you come from. It makes me understand you a bit more." Ayra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps understanding is the first step towards unity." Jack agreed. "Exactly. And who knows? Maybe one day, there'll be a bit of Selim on Earth and a bit of Earth on Selim." Their day at the Cultural Center had not only broadened their understanding of each other's worlds, but had deepened the budding friendship between them. As they left the center, their conversation drifted to plans for the next day, both eager to continue their intercultural exploration together. As the artificial sun dipped below the skyline of the spaceport city, painting the clouds in hues of orange and purple, Jack invited Ayra to his apartment. A modest dwelling adorned with artifacts from his travels and large windows that offered a panoramic view of the bustling port. "This is where I call home when I'm not hopping between stars," Jack said as he opened the door, allowing Ayra to step inside first. Ayra looked around with keen interest, her eyes settling on various objects and photographs. "You've been to so many places," she remarked, pointing to a framed picture of a vibrant marketplace on a distant planet. "Yeah. Trading takes you places. And each place has its own story," Jack explained, following her gaze. He picked up a small, metallic model of a ship. "Got this on a little moon where they hadn't seen a human before. I think I was more of an exhibit than the artifacts they were selling." Ayra chuckled, her earlier apprehension eased by the warmth of Jack's home. "Humans are quite fascinating, I must admit." Jack grinned and motioned toward the balcony. "Come on. I want to show you something." Outside, the balcony offered a breathtaking view of the spaceport. Ships of all sizes and designs glided gracefully into docks, their lights twinkling like stars against the night sky. "It's beautiful here," Ayra said, resting her hands on the railing, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's peaceful, in its own chaotic way," Jack agreed, joining her at the railing. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in the vastness of the scene before them. After a pause, Jack turned to Ayra. "What's it like, being so far from your planet? Do you get homesick?" Ayra's gaze lingered on a passing ship, its hull shimmering with reflective light. "Sometimes. It's not just the place, but the people, the sounds, and the water. But this journey, it's important. I need to learn, to grow." "I understand that," Jack said softly. "Sometimes I wonder what I'm looking for out here." Their conversation drifted from personal revelations to lighter topics. Jack asked about Selim's music, and Ayra described the haunting melodies played on instruments crafted from coral and shells. "Wait, you have to hear this," Jack said suddenly, walking back inside. He returned with a small device and played a recording of human classical music, the strings echoing softly through the air. "That's beautiful," Ayra said, listening intently. "It's so different from ours, yet it evokes similar feelings." Encouraged by her interest, Jack shared more about human art and culture, showing her books and more music, each piece a gateway to understanding human emotions and history. Eventually, They moved to the couch, surrounded by piles of books and artifacts. Jack handed Ayra a book about human myths and legends. As she flipped through the pages, Jack watched her, fascinated by her curiosity and the gentle way she handled the book. "You're really into this, huh?" Jack observed. "Yes, I love learning about others." "And your stories are captivating," Ayra replied, her eyes not leaving the book. As the night grew deeper, their discussion turned into a shared storytelling session. Ayra recounted a popular Salem legend about a hero who traveled the oceans to unite the underwater cities. "I think every culture has a hero's journey," Jack mused. "Different details, but the same heart." "Yes, maybe that's why we explore, why we reach out, searching for that common heart," Ayra suggested, her voice thoughtful. Jack nodded in agreement. "Maybe that's also why we're sitting here, sharing our worlds." As the night ended, Ayra looked around Jack's home once more, a sense of belonging settling over her. "Thank you for sharing your world with me, Jack. This has been one of the best nights of my journey." "Anytime, Ayra." "I'm glad you felt at home," Jack replied, his voice sincere. Their bond strengthened by the night's exchange. They agreed to explore more of each other's cultures in the days to come. The night had indeed deepened their connection, turning curiosity into a budding friendship that promised to grow with each shared experience. Jack and Ayra decided to spend the day at a sprawling public park known for its collection of plants from across the universe. The park's landscape architects had created a seamless blend of earth flora with alien vegetation, creating a peaceful oasis amidst the urban sprawl of the spaceport city. As they walked along a path lined with luminescent foliage that subtly changed colors, Jack pointed to a particularly vibrant cluster of plants. "These are from Xylophia. They communicate with each other through color changes. It's kind of like how plants on Earth react to sunlight and water, but way more interactive." Ayra touched a leaf gently, watching it shift from a deep blue to a bright yellow. "Fascinating. On Salem, we have something similar, but it's underwater. The plants communicate through bioluminescence based on the water's current." Their conversation naturally drifted to the topic of communication and personal interaction norms among their species. "So, on Salem, how do people typically interact? Like, what's considered polite or rude?" Jack asked, genuinely curious about her cultural norms. Ayra thought for a moment before answering. "Well, for one thing, direct eye contact is considered an invitation. It's like saying, 'I am open to you and trust you.' But I've noticed here it can be quite different." Jack nodded. "Yeah, it really depends. In some human cultures, it's a sign of respect. In others, too much eye contact can be seen as aggressive." "What about personal space?" "Calumians don't have a strong concept of personal space the way humans do. We're used to being close, physically. Our cities are built in confined spaces underwater, so personal space isn't as valued," she explained. Jack listened intently, his mind piecing together the subtle cues he'd need to remember to avoid misunderstandings. "That's really interesting. It's a bit of a shift from most human environments. Here, especially in bigger cities, people value personal space a lot. Crowds can get stressful." They found a bench near a serene pond that mirrored the sky above and sat down. The reflection in the water showed a mix of Earth's clouds and alien plant life, symbolizing the mingling of their worlds. "I've noticed that humans also have many different ways of showing affection. Could you explain some of them?" Ayra asked, turning to face Jack with an inquisitive look. "Sure," Jack started. "Like handshakes, hugs, or kisses on the cheek are common greetings, depending on how close the people are. Friends might hug, while a kiss on the cheek is often more for family or close friends in some cultures." Ayra absorbed the information, her mind racing with questions about the nuances of human behavior. "And what about romantic relationships? How are they expressed?" Jack's cheeks colored slightly. "Well, that can be even more complicated. Some people are very open with public displays of affection, while others are more reserved. It usually depends on personal preference and cultural background. On Salem, expressing romantic interest is more straightforward. If someone is interested, they make it known. If the interest is mutual, they become bonded, and it's celebrated openly. There's less hesitation, Ayra shared, noticing Jack's slight discomfort and wondering about the complexities of human relationships. The conversation opened up a new level of understanding between them, bridging the gap between human and Kalumian concepts of intimacy and social interaction. They continued to discuss various cultural practices, finding both contrasts and similarities. As the day faded into evening, their discussion had deepened their connection, each learning not only about another culture but gaining insight into each other's personal boundaries and expectations. This was really enlightening, Ayra. I feel like I understand your world a little better now, Jack said, a smile spreading across his face. And I yours. It's fascinating, the diversity and complexity of human relationships, Ayra responded, her tone appreciative. They rose from the bench, feeling more attuned to each other than before, ready to explore more of the park and their growing friendship. The day's exchange had not only expanded their knowledge but had also subtly shifted their dynamic, paving the way for deeper, more meaningful interactions in the future. The Interstellar Alignment Festival was a spectacle of lights, music, and laughter, celebrating the rare cosmic event that brought multiple planets into conjunction. Jack had mentioned it in passing, and Ayra was immediately intrigued by the idea of a celebration that transcended planetary boundaries. As they walked through the crowded festival grounds, Jack pointed out various attractions and stalls. This festival is one of the few times we get to see such a mix of cultures in one place. Everyone brings a bit of their home here. Ayra, dazzled by the vibrant displays and the cacophony of sounds, followed Jack to a stall draped in colorful fabrics where a vendor was demonstrating traditional dance steps from a distant human colony. The movements were fluid and captivating. Dancing is a big part of this festival. It's a way to express joy and show respect for the alignment, Jack explained, his eyes lighting up with excitement. Do you dance on Selim? Only during the High Tides Festival. Our dances are slower, more flowing, mimicking the ocean currents, Ayra responded, watching the dancers with keen interest. Would you like to try some of our dances? Jack asked with a hopeful grin. Ayra laughed lightly, a bit hesitant but intrigued. I would love to, but you'll have to lead. I'm not familiar with your steps. Deal. Let's start with something simple, Jack said as he took her by the hand and led her to a less crowded part of the festival where people were dancing to a lively tune. He began with basic steps, guiding her through the motions. At first, Ayra was cautious, carefully watching her feet as they moved. However, as the music continued, she began to relax, her movements becoming more fluid and confident. You're a quick learner, Jack complimented, as they swayed to the rhythm. The music, a lively blend of human and alien instruments, filled the air with a euphoric harmony. It's easier with a good teacher, Ayra replied. Her face lit up by the festival lights and her earlier apprehension replaced by laughter. As they danced, their initial awkwardness gave way to a more natural, harmonious connection. The dance floor became their world, the music their language. The crowd around them seemed to blur into the background as they found their rhythm. Dancing like this, it's freeing, Ayra noted, her voice a mix of wonder and delight. It's meant to be, Jack said, leading her into a spin. It's about expressing yourself, letting go of your worries for a while. As the song ended, they paused, slightly out of breath but smiling broadly. The crowd cheered, and Ayra's cheeks flushed with a mix of exertion and joy. I haven't felt this light in ages, she admitted as they stepped aside to catch their breath. Jack bought them both a local, fizzy drink, handing one to Ayra. It's about sharing happiness. That's what the festival is for. Bringing people together, making them forget their differences for a moment. Ayra took a sip of the drink, its sweetness tingling on her tongue. We could use something like this on Selim. A reminder that joy can be shared, even between different worlds. Their conversation drifted into deeper topics about culture and tradition, but the initial barrier had been crossed. They were no longer just friends. They were partners in the dance of cultural exchange and personal understanding. As they walked back through the festival, hand in hand, the night seemed a little brighter, the stars aligning not just in the sky, but in their hearts as well. The festival had not only celebrated the alignment of planets, but had aligned two beings from vastly different worlds, showing them the beauty of shared moments and mutual discovery. The festival's music still lingered in the air as Jack and Ayra found themselves walking back to Jack's apartment. The streets were quieter here, away from the bustling energy of the festival, and the gentle hum of the spaceport at night created a soothing backdrop. As they entered Jack's apartment, the familiarity of the setting seemed to wrap around them comfortingly. Ayra took a deep breath, taking in the serene atmosphere that Jack had created with soft lighting and gentle music in the background. "Would you like something to drink? Maybe some water? Or I have some fruit juice from earlier," Jack offered, heading towards the kitchen. "Water would be great, thank you," Ayra responded, her voice soft. She sat on the couch, her fingers tracing the patterns on the fabric, each touch lingering as if to memorize the texture. Jack returned with 2 glasses of water, handing one to Ayra before sitting down next to her. The closeness felt natural, yet there was a palpable shift in the air, a mixture of anticipation and a deepening connection. Ayra turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting a complex mix of emotions. "Jack, dancing with you tonight, it made me feel. It was more than just fun. I felt connected, not just to you, but to everything." Jack nodded, understanding her meaning. "I felt it too. It's like we were in our own world, wasn't it? Just us and the music." "Yes, exactly that. And now, being here, with you." Ayra's voice trailed off as she moved closer to Jack, her hand reaching out to touch his. Their eyes met, and without needing to speak further, they leaned in simultaneously, their lips meeting in a gentle, exploratory kiss. The kiss deepened, driven by the emotions that had been building throughout the evening. As they pulled away, Jack looked at Ayra with a smile. "I'm really glad you're here." "So am I," Ayra whispered back, her hand caressing his cheek. They kissed again, this time with a sense of urgency, their bodies moving closer. Jack's hands explored Ayra's back, finding the zipper of her dress, his fingers brushing against her skin. Ayra's breath caught in her throat, and she murmured against his lips, "Your thing hits me that hard. Please don't stop." Encouraged by her words, Jack deepened the kiss, his hands roaming more confidently. They moved together to the bedroom, their movements fluid and synchronized, as if they were still dancing to a melody only they could hear. In the intimacy of the bedroom, their connection deepened, transcending the physical as they explored each other's desires and boundaries. Each touch, each kiss, was a discovery, an affirmation of the bond they had formed. Afterward, they lay together in silence, the night sounds of the spaceport a distant whisper compared to the intensity of their earlier connection. "That was incredible," Jack finally said, his voice a mixture of awe and contentment. Ayra turned to face him, her smile soft and intimate. "It was more than I expected. I've never felt this way before." Jack stroked her hair, the gesture tender and protective. "Neither have I. It's like we're discovering a whole new universe together." "Yes, a universe just for us," Ayra agreed, her head resting against his chest. They fell asleep intertwined, the barriers of their different worlds dissolved by the power of their connection. The night was a testament to the potential of understanding and intimacy, not just between two people, but between two vastly different cultures, bridging galaxies in the quiet of a spaceport city. The morning light filtered through the blinds of Jack's apartment, casting soft, warm stripes across the room where Jack and Ayra lay. The calm of the early hours was a gentle pause, a quiet space where the echoes of last night's connection seemed to linger in the air. Ayra stirred first, her movement gentle as not to disturb the peaceful scene. She turned to Jack, who was still half asleep, and watched him for a few moments, a content smile forming on her lips. "Good morning," Jack murmured, his voice husky from sleep as he opened his eyes to meet hers. "Good morning," Ayra replied, her hand reaching out to brush a lock of hair from his forehead. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well. Actually, I don't think I've ever been this relaxed," Jack confessed, his hand finding hers and squeezing it gently. Ayra's smile widened. "I feel the same. Last night it was special." "It was," Jack agreed, sitting up and stretching his arms. "I was thinking about what you said yesterday, about how different our worlds are, yet how similar we can be." "Yes, it's fascinating, isn't it? How we can find common ground, even from galaxies apart, Ayra said thoughtfully, propping herself up on one elbow. Jack nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. I was wondering if you'd like to explore more of that with me. Not just here, but maybe traveling together? There's a lot out there that I'd love to see through your eyes. Ayra's expression brightened at the suggestion. I would love that. There's much I want to show you too, about Sealam and beyond. There are trade routes and cultural exchanges that I think we could explore together. That sounds perfect, Jack said, his enthusiasm matching hers. We could learn so much from each other and from the places we visit. It could be our own kind of cultural exchange program. Laughing, Ayra agreed. Exactly. And along the way, we can maybe teach others about our experiences, about how bridging cultures can bring about new understandings and opportunities. Jack got out of bed and walked over to the window, pulling the blinds up fully to let the morning light flood the room. Let's start planning then. There's a lot to prepare if we're going to be galactic travelers. Ayra joined him by the window, her hand resting on his arm as they both looked out at the city awakening below. I think this is the beginning of something incredible, Jack. It is, Jack confirmed, turning to face her. I'm glad you're here with me, Ayra. It feels right, like this is exactly where we're supposed to be. Their discussion continued over breakfast, a comfortable exchange of ideas and dreams. They talked about potential destinations, logistical needs, and the aspects of their cultures they wanted to share with each other and the worlds they would visit. As they cleared the breakfast table together, the ease between them was palpable, a seamless blend of companionship and shared intent. The excitement of their upcoming adventures added a new layer to their relationship, promising not just shared journeys, but a shared life. Here's to new horizons, Ayra, Jack toasted, raising his coffee cup. To new horizons, and to us, Ayra echoed, clinking her cup against his. As they finished their morning routine, the apartment no longer felt like just a spaceport stopover for Jack or a strange, new place for Ayra. It had become a launching pad for their future together, a place of mutual understanding and affection that would stay with them across the stars.